Hello, and welcome to Conversations Worth Your While, a show in which I chat with really cool people about interesting topics to spark, inspire, and motivate personal and professional change. And today's topic is how to feel better now. And this conversation is worth your while if you find yourself exhausted or in pain, or maybe you have unexplained weight gain or indigestion, or you have disrupted sleep and you've tried everything to feel better, but nothing seems to work. And so you're like, I don't even know what to do next. But you do know that you want more energy and you want better sleep and you want to wake up feeling good every day because you know also that the longer that these issues go on, the worse they'll get, the worse your quality of life will be, the higher risk of disease you'll have, and ultimately you'll have less time on this earth. So, this is why this is an excellent topic to share with you today. And we're going to cover why what you've tried hasn't worked for you, but we're also going to cover obstacles to change because you know you have to do something different if you want different results. But there's some obstacles in your way. So we're going to cover those. And then finally, we'll share with you a few simple changes that you can make right now to feel better, to have more energy, to get better sleep, and to be in less pain. So let's start with some introductions. I'm Linda Bucher. I'm a heart centered master coach and a mindset mentor and a transformative speaker and an author. And if you're excited about making a very positive impact on the world and you feel that there's this bigness inside of you that you know you've meant to share, and you want to do more, be more, and have more joy, more fun, more balance, and more impact, then connect with me because I will help you to get clear, lighten your load, and focus your energy and gifts. And today I have the pleasure of being joined by Dr. Jennifer Culver, who is an expert in healing your body through holistic means. So, hello, Jennifer, and welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm excited that you're here today. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do and who you serve?
Sure. So, I am a nationally board certified health and wellness coach with a PhD in holistic life coaching. And I really help people align to shine by aligning with who you are. So, understanding who you are with your body, who you are with your mind, similar to you, as well as your spirit, and making sure that you truly are shining with as you are, rather than
Beautiful.
you think you might be.
Yes. Yes, I totally get it. That could be part of the issue as well. But today, our topic is feel better now because exhaustion and pain and weight gain and indigestion and disrupted sleep, those things just have to stop. And people usually are going in the wrong direction when they're trying to stop these things. So, usually, our first thing we're going to cover is why what people have tried hasn't worked for them. Now, what do people typically try? What, in your world, what do you hear from them that they're typically trying that's not actually working?
Well, it does depend on the symptom, but as like nutritionally, if they're having disruption in their gut and things like that, they'll try the fads. They'll try like the keto diet, or they'll do low carb, or whatever the it thing is. And it could be like a nutrition bar where it has all these different shakes that are through a like a third or a multi-level marketing company, if
Oh,
you
right.
will, and um, without any results. And if it's like sleep, they're trying different medications, or they're trying different herbal aids and different things to try to sleep, and it doesn't always work. Or they're trying alcohol to resolve all of it.
Right. Yeah. I know, um, also with like indigestion, people are just keeping Tums in their pocket and popping a roll of them a day, every other day. So they're really trying to fix the symptoms
Yes,
without actually understanding the cause. So
correct.
where is the real issue? And because I mean, this is we're talking about a wide variety of symptoms, right?
Yes.
And what is the surprising cause of most of these symptoms in many cases?
It's the health of the gut, or the unhealthiness of the gut. The
Mm.
gut is the source of illness, of disease, of disruption with your sleep, and indigestion, and all these different things that we're talking about. And we don't necessarily understand that our gut has an issue.
Right. Yes. And we just, I mean, most of us just want to eat what we want to eat. We eat to feel better, even though what we're looking for is not food. Like I remember this story. My son was I don't know, 16. He had broken up with his girlfriend and he was eating really clean because he wanted to get into shape. And I picked him up from his job at the grocery store and he came out and he was elbow deep in a can of Pringles. And I was really surprised because he's super disciplined. When he wants something, he can get it. And he really wanted to lose some weight and get into shape. And he had been eating clean for like 3 weeks, like very seriously. Like, Mom, only make me vegetables and lean meats. I'm not eating potatoes, super clean. So here he comes out, elbow deep in this can of Pringles. And I said, Bud, like, what's you were eating so clean. What's wrong? Why are you eating those Pringles? He goes, well, I miss Kayla. And I'm like, is she in that can? He said, no, she's not. And he put the lid on, he passed it back to his little sister. So he just wanted to feel better. And
Yeah.
yet, a lot of people turn to junk food to feel better because we get some kind of a high out of eating junk food. And what we're doing is actually making ourselves feel worse in the long
Absolutely.
run and even in the short run.
Yes. I love that you brought up eating clean because not many people even understand what that means.
Mm.
And, there's this whole 30 concept, which is a wonderful way to really clean up your diet. And what's not in there is sugar. And oftentimes, the gluten and the other things that we're becoming addicted to, that's really influencing our gut.
Yeah, okay. Sugar. Guilty as charged. I gave up gluten 5 years ago, and it wasn't nearly as hard as I thought it would be. And I think that's really interesting. And that is a good segue into the next part of our conversation. And so is the sugar thing on the other side. So we have obstacles to change, right? We know we have to do something different because we want different results, but we're not really willing to do what we think it will take. I
Yes.
thought giving up gluten was going to be really hard. And in fact, it's made my life so much better in so many ways. First of all, I'm Italian, and I had to find the pasta
Ooh.
that was not going to break when I stirred it because gluten-free pasta is typically terrible, right? I had to
Or
find the pasta that wasn't going to
they're
turn to
really hard.
mush, yeah, and be all like starch what, right?
Yeah.
And I found the brands that are like always consistently delicious. I know where to get what angel hair I want. I know the brand that I'm going to get my lasagna from. I know what works and what are really good brands. I also had to learn how to cook the pasta a little differently. It takes a little longer, except the fresh gluten free that doesn't, but it takes a little longer. So I had to learn a little bit about that. I had to learn how to store it because it needs to be rehydrated before you reheat it. So I don't store it with the sauce. A couple little tiny changes, but now I can do anything with pasta that anybody else can do. Okay, so it's that was important, right? Um, and so it wasn't as hard as I thought. I had to just clear everything out of the house and just make a commitment. And then, when I eat out, I know what to ask for and what I can have and not have. But I go out to dinner once or twice a week. So I am going out. I mean, it didn't stop me. Life didn't have to stop because I gave up gluten. Okay. Um, and so let's talk a little bit about like, it might not be as bad as you think. There are substitutions, and if you talk with someone who really knows how to do these things and who has already been through it and understands like the difficulties, like that you're going to have, the mindset issues, the physical issues, right?
Mhm.
So, but what I haven't done is give up sugar. And that's because that is a physical addiction. And I think you should talk a little bit about that. And so and then also talk a little bit about, you mentioned to me about how when we give something up and we're gluten free, how we tell people about that, how they want to, you know.
Yeah, it can be challenging because what happens is then all of a sudden you're viewed as different, whether you're imposing it on yourself or you truly are hearing or feeling like everybody has to do something special because you have a different way of eating than the norm. And coffee and caffeine and sugar and gluten, like you said, sometimes it's wheat and soy, almonds, like, all those things on the back of the label of any kind of processed food that has the allergen information. All of those items, there's a reason why they are highly that we are highly allergic to them, because we're highly addicted to them. It's been infused in so many of the foods and things that are available. And so we don't want anybody to, in many cases, don't want people to have to do anything, bend over backwards or do anything. But it can also be a little more challenging to prepare at home. But if you can get your family on board, you're not only helping yourself, you're helping your family as well.
Yeah, that's really true. So, I just make everything gluten free all the time. I use gluten free breadcrumbs. I know how to use them because I did have to learn how to use them. They're a little different than using
Yes.
regular breadcrumbs. But in doing that, so now now John eats cleaner and he doesn't even recognize it. And then the other day he had, I don't know what he had, something that was a lot more gluten than he normally would have because he's not eating it very often at home. And he's like, "Oh, I feel really bloated. What do you think that is?" I'm like, "I think that's because you ate gluten. You're just not used to it, you know?"
Yes.
And I actually have people in my family who have given up only gluten-free pasta. They've only eat gluten-free pasta. They still eat bread, but it's the pasta that, and they feel better. Just they didn't go gluten-free in total, but they
Mhm.
just don't eat regular pasta anymore, and that's enough to help them. They don't have that awful big full feeling after a pasta dinner. So just small changes like that, they don't even realize, "Whoa, I feel better just from this one little thing." Yeah. But
And
this
it's
addiction.
amazing. Yes, but it's amazing that restaurants are accommodating people more so
Yeah.
now. You'll
Yeah.
find gluten-free options and other allergen-friendly products now in the grocery stores. So unless you live in a small town like where I do and you have to go to a larger city, it's readily available. But still,
Yeah.
some of the obstacles to change are accessibility of those food items or
Right.
making that change, especially if you live in an area where it's McDonald's and I don't, other fast foods, and nothing against McDonald's, but I don't know that they have anything. I don't know personally,
Right.
but what
Salad
kind
with
of
chicken breast on
availability there
top of it.
is
Yeah.
that's low
Yeah.
sugar, things like
Right.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you brought up this addiction thing, because that's a physical obstacle to change. So we've got mental things. We think it's going to take more than maybe it does. We don't want to be seen as different. We're worried about putting people out. Those are all mental, right?
Mhm.
But there's physical. This it is a physical addiction, and I don't think I eat a ton of sugar, but I'm sure I eat more than is healthy for my gut. Um, so I might only have one scoop of ice cream, you know, four
Mhm.
days a week, but I'm still having ice cream 4 days a week. I'm down to one scoop. That's not so bad, but I'm still having
Mhm.
ice cream. I still open the pantry and, pop a marshmallow, kind of like, Elf, right, with those cotton balls. Bloop, doop. So popping the marshmallows, that's my little treat. But it takes 5 marshmallows to have 90 calories. So I don't know how much sugar's in one marshmallow, but not too much. But still, I can still feel myself wanting it. So, what do we do when we have these physical obstacles to change this addiction thing? How can we make it easier?
Well, the big thing is figuring out what is causing your challenges. So, if sugar is your addiction, there are ways that you can kind of eliminate or reduce in different things. But sometimes it's a deeper issue, a deeper allergen that you're not even aware of. And you have to figure out what is causing you these symptoms that we talked about at the beginning,
Mm,
because it's unique for everybody. We all have a different microbiome. So that's like your environment, if you will, in your gut. And there is that link between the gut and the mind. And so what works for you isn't going to work for me, isn't going to work for the next person. So it's figuring out what is your trigger. What are the things that are causing you pain, causing you indigestion and losing sleep and things like that. And ultimately, they are altering the cells in your being, which is leading to disease, especially cancer and things like that. So these markers or these cells that are being triggered to go into that disease state can be reversed when you start to reduce these allergens and possibly eliminate them from your diet.
That's really great news that they can be reversed because a lot of
Mhm.
times you hear like,
Yes.
well, you won't do any more damage, but what the damage there is there done. So that's a really beautiful thing to know.
Mhm.
And if you know what your triggers are, then you can make an informed decision on what you want to do next.
Correct.
Because our you can just determine, oh, these are the things, in order of the worst villains to my gut, right? And say, well, I'm not ready to tackle sugar yet or gluten yet, but I can tackle soy because that might be one of the things that came up for you that I can do. I can reduce soy, right? So we might be able to just take it a little tiny step at a time once we know, right?
Yes.
So so knowing is really good because we can be empowered. And if we
Yes.
don't know, we're just masking these symptoms with, little band-aids, right? We're taking melatonin to go to sleep. We're popping Tums so that we don't have indigestion. We're going on keto diets to lose the weight. When all along, those are just an unhealthy habit.
Beverages to stay awake or whatever the case may be.
Right,
This is
caffeine
tea,
to
by the way.
yeah, yeah. I do my 1 cup in the morning. It's about 12 or 14 ounces, maybe 12 ounces of coffee. And then I'm done for the whole day. So, but, it is like if I don't have it, I'm like, oh, where's my coffee?
Right.
So, yeah. So, finding your triggers. And what are like 2 ways that people can find these triggers?
The most recent traditional way has been through an elimination diet where you strip out all of these triggers that we're talking, or all of these common allergen sources from your diet for a certain amount of time. And then you slowly and methodically start to add things back, and not like sugar one day, caffeine the next, and things like that, but have a systematic approach phased. So because oftentimes the symptoms that you feel can take 2, 3, or 4 days before they actually kick into gear.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a very methodical approach to that. I'm doing it right now, as a matter of fact, just to clean out my system, because I had COVID recently and I'm just trying to do a reset and just see how things go. But what's advanced or become more popular now is having a blood test. So pricking your finger and putting a few drops of blood on a card, and you can send it in away. It's a home kit that you can have sent away, and then you can receive a printout of your most common or highly allergic or sensitive foods in ranking order. So you can find out, okay, yeah, I think I have a gluten issue, but oh my gosh, I didn't realize this. Dairy is my number one, which by the way is my number one. And I know that I have to stay away from it because I really react to it. So when you have an opportunity to get a printout that says, this is me, and here is the order in which I could attack it or tackle it, if you will, if I wanted to phase into it, I could start by eliminating dairy. Then I could start by eliminating gluten. And it doesn't mean you have to eliminate it forever,
Right.
because 6 months, 9 months, 12 months later, you could try to reintroduce some of these foods, see how you feel, and you may have a decision right there to decide, oh, yep, you know what, that still does not agree with me, and I need to um, continue eliminating that.
Right. Well, I love that you brought that up because people think forever, right? And like what happens with me, if I'm clean with gluten for 3, 4 weeks and I have 2 pieces of pizza, I don't feel the difference. I really don't.
Okay, good.
But if I buy a loaf of sourdough, which is supposed to have a little less gluten, and it's
Yes.
there and I love it and I eat it every day for 6 days, it bothers me. So, and what's interesting with me is I didn't get off gluten for the normal gut reasons that a lot of people get off gluten. Um, I was at the chiropractor and he was a kinesiology, specialist. And he said, I'm going to let your body tell me where to adjust and what it wants. And so, put your hand over here and they test the muscle strength, the muscle testing. It's
Yes.
feels like magic. It's crazy. Your muscle's super strong and then you go like this and then it's really weak, or whatever. And so, he told me, he said, your thyroid is, he goes, I'll tell you, there's something up with your thyroid. It's a little unhappy. Um, and he said I don't want to scare you. He said because 9 times out of 10, when in my work when thyroid comes up, he says it's a gluten insensitivity because, and I'm not going to get this exactly right, but the protein in gluten is molecularly similar to the hormone that our thyroids secrete. And so if your body doesn't like gluten, it starts attacking the gluten, but it's also attacking that hormone that your thyroid is, so then Hashimoto's might come next or whatever. So
Yes.
you should really, be aware of this. So I was like, oh, well, I have a nutritionist friend and my best friend who her daughter actually almost died at 13 because she was allergic to all foods and they had to reintegrate them over a year period. Like she
Wow.
couldn't eat anything without throwing up. Not Nothing, just water was it. And she was getting no nutrients. So it was a very horrible thing. And her body just needed to completely reset and integrate things back in. So my best friend's like, I can tell you can maybe stay away from gluten. She was telling me that, my nutritionist friend. So when the chiropractor said it, I said, well, I'll try it. And I had 24/7 back pain because I have two lumbar discs that are herniated. So I went to the spine doctor, and she's like, well, I can put a needle in your spine about every 6 months and inject whatever, and then it won't hurt anymore. But we're not fixing herniated discs. We're not going to do surgery or anything. We don't diffuse anything right now. Just that's how we can get you out of pain. Because it was all the time. I was always in pain. Always, always, always. So I go on this experiment after the chiropractor says this, and I just clear out the gluten in my house and I stop eating gluten. I go to the chiropractor a month later. And he's like, okay, so what are we doing today? How are you feeling? And I'm like, well, you know what? My back doesn't hurt anymore. and and I'm like, are those, but it's not going to unherniate those discs, right? And he's like, no, you're still herniated. He said, but if you gave up gluten and you don't hurt anymore, he said it's because when you have an inflammatory response to something your body doesn't like, it it inflames everything, your nerve endings. So pain that should feel like this big feels this big, feels huge. You should have a pain level of maybe 1 or 2 out of 10, but it feels like it's an 8 all the time because of inflammation. And he also told me that a lot of times when professional athletes get like a concussion, they strip all this stuff out of their diet and put them on an anti-inflammatory diet because they want the brain to heal so that they can get back in the game. So I was like, wow, that's fascinating. And I also have some arthritis, which is a inflammatory disease as well. And
Mhm.
when I eat gluten, my fingers hurt, the arthritis hurts, my back starts to hurt again. So I feel the difference. And it wasn't a gut type issue, right? So although my gut also is better, but I didn't know there was anything wrong with my gut. So it's very interesting that when people think, oh, I'm going to the chiropractor because my back hurts, I'm going to whatever. Now, my chiropractor happened to know and turn, and push me or nudge me into this direction of checking it out. But for the most part, people are using these wrong, they're not in the right place. They're just fixing the symptoms, right? So this is how, now I'm passionate. Now people are like, oh, here comes Lynn. She's going to talk about gluten again. But if you're inflamed, oh, my arthritis is killing me. I'm like, well, your body doesn't like something. It's inflamed. So why, but they're not willing to give stuff up, right? So I think we've touched upon so much of that. And so the other thing we're talking about, like some simple things they can do. So finding your triggers either through an elimination diet, which to me is like the long hard way. So I'm going for that blood test because, right, if sugar comes up at the top, I'll go okay. If dairy comes up at the top, I'll go okay. Although I'm mostly dairy free. But the other piece of the simple thing is it's really about balancing your life. So I was my I was experiencing civil unrest, let's put it that way, when the true me was all done living in the life that I had set up for myself. It wasn't working for me. I didn't know what had to give, but I knew something had to give. My body was a mess. At that point, I had the worst indigestion. I went to the doctor. He said my gallbladder through a CAT scan was working at about 27%, and we're probably going to take it out. Right? This I had neck and back pain 24 hours a day. Could sleep maybe 15 minutes and I'd wake up in pain and have to move and roll and change. I couldn't sit in a staff meeting. I had to stand up when we had department meetings and walk around because my back was killing me all the time. I, did not have good sleep. I had 22 pounds on me that I didn't know where it came from. It just snuck up. And the point was, I was very, very stressed because I was in the wrong life. I was not in this balanced, rewarding place where I am now. And there's a huge difference. And so, what was right for me at the time was I decided to trust myself and go it on my own and find my passion and my purpose, which I did. And while I was in school to become a life coach, which is like a year-long program, I was in about 2 months, and I was overwhelmed because I was a widowed mom of 3 little children, and I'd walk in the door after my full-time job, and it was like I was like an executive, so there was a lot of stress there too. I walk in the door and I'm like, mom, 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 times 3 coming at me. And I want to spend time with them. I got to cook dinner. I got to clean up, give them their baths. They're little. They're going to bed at different times. I'd sit down at like 9:30 to try to study for this new profession I'm going to do. And I'd be exhausted. I had to study like 15 minutes and I'd be done. So tired. And I knew something had to give. So I decided to trust myself and go out on my own and said, I'm not going to school to become a life coach because maybe I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to be a coach and look what I've already accomplished. I know I can do this. So I quit my job. And it was like a big 6-figure job. I even thought it was crazy because I'm a widowed mom of 3, right? And I got all these responsibilities financially, whatever. Thought it was crazy. And I was like, no, I'm going to bet on myself. I did that within a month and a half. I lost all 22 pounds. I had zero indigestion. And my back and neck pain got about 85% better. It was amazing what a lifestyle change, really just taking off the pressure and giving myself some space to discover who I was, right?
Yes.
And the right direction for me to discover what I'm passionate about and then to land on my purpose. And doing all that is amazing. And so a lot of times when I see people with all this weight that's extra that just comes on, I'm like, oh, that's stress weight because I wasn't eating any differently. Matter of fact, I probably ate worse after I quit my job. I was like, Oreos are here all the time because I'm in the house and they're in the house, you know. But it was really amazing that
Mhm.
my body just went because my mind went So this, let's
Yes.
talk a little bit about this mind body connection, um, real quick before we finish up.
The gut is considered the second brain. And there is a communication system that happens both ways with the gut to the brain and the brain to the gut. And I love what you said about stress because stress is just like food in that what happens is we're just backing up a second when we talk about the food triggers, that's creating stress in the body. Whether so that stress plus whatever lifestyle stress you might have, whether it's work, personal, relationships, whatever, that accumulates, and both of those stressors, if you will, create that inflammation, and then that inflammation creates disease. So you just gave a wonderful example of how we can stress and inflame our system and lead to disease just by how we're living our life, personally, professionally, relationships, the career that we're in, maybe not really aligning with who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And all right, I forgot the question. What was the question?
It
Yes,
doesn't
I got
matter.
started on the whole relationship and forgot.
Yeah, we're just talking about how really lightening your load and balancing your life is
Oh, yeah.
also a change to be made. And it
Yes.
doesn't have to be as hard as what you think,
Right.
right?
Right.
It might not, I mean, I I knew 9 years before I made a change in my life to do this. I already knew, but I was ignoring it. I had that civil unrest for 9 years. To live through that for 9 years was really a long time because what I thought it was going to take was this big, long, drawn out journey. I just wanted someone to just give me the quick way, just give me the fast, easy, quick solution. Um, but what I didn't understand is I needed to be ready, right? So
Mhm.
not everybody's ready to
Yes.
make these changes,
Yes.
right? I needed to be ready, which was going to happen. There's a catalyst, right? So what was the catalyst? The catalyst was the three things I mentioned: my gallbladder,
Mhm.
and the weight gain and the terrible physical discomfort in my back and neck. That it took that long, that's a long time, 9 years,
Yes.
to finally say enough is enough. I'm all done. I'm all done feeling this way. And so, you know, and that's where people have to get to. They have to be ready to make these changes. And if they're not sure exactly what it's going to take, just getting a little educated, like what you and I are talking about, so they can call you up, right?
Yes.
Um, and I'll let you tell us about that in a minute. You can call me up and connect one on one, and I'll help you with the lifestyle part of it and the lightening your load, so that you can give these important gifts to the world that you have been given, right? And so it's not as hard as you think, and it's way more rewarding than you can ever know.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Yeah. So, Jennifer, I want to thank you so much for being on Conversations with Your Well. Can you tell our audience how they can get in touch with you and what you can offer them?
Absolutely. So I will put a link in the recording of this, and What I'd like to offer to everybody is the opportunity to work with me one-on-one for an hour. And that could be pre-blood test, post-blood test, or if you want to understand the elimination diet, and just help you set up an initial plan. And then from there, you can decide how you want to implement that plan. And if you need help implementing it, we can talk about that. But just to get you started, so you have a framework for you that's unique to you.
Mm. Yeah, I love that because all this one size fits all, everything what we're reading in magazines, give this up, give that up, do this, do that, it doesn't work. And people have tried and they're probably listening because it hasn't worked. That's why they're listening today.
Yes.
So
And
that's a
there's no
beautiful
obligation.
offer.
So I
Right.
want people to be happy. I want people to be healthy. And I want people to be able to find their solution and quit playing the game of trying to figure it out and getting discouraged and frustrated. And because there are answers, and maybe you just need to be pointed in that right direction. And I'm happy to do that for you.
Beautiful. Yes, yes, very beautiful. I also have a one-on-one where I do the same type of thing in a little different realm because I'm on about the mindset mentoring and coaching, but to help people to give themselves permission to feel good because that can be a big, big obstacle. A lot of times we're so busy helping everybody else, we don't give ourselves permission to help ourselves,
Yes.
and but all those other people we're helping, they want and need us to be healthy and balanced. So that's my jam. That's where it comes in. So yeah. So that's beautiful. Thank you so much. And once again, I am Linda Bucher, helping you to lighten your load, unleash that bigness inside of you, make an impact on the world, and live a balanced, rewarding life. And I'd like to thank Jennifer Culver, Dr. Jennifer Culver, our resident expert today. And I'd like to thank you, our audience, for sharing your time with us today. So please subscribe and remember to check the description where you'll find our contact information and the free tools that we're gifting to you. And until next time, make sure you've made this conversation worth your while by fueling the spark it ignited.